Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you to share some thoughts about how we can discuss, and this will be a discussion. My presentation is going to be very short, about how we can raise the international profile further of the health informatics work that we do in Asia and Australasia. What I'll do, to background the discussion, I will present some of what I think and what a profile means, especially in terms of style and substance and the quality of the substance. Discuss some issues and strategies to raise our profile. And then I guess come back to discussing how we can further raise our profile in scholarly journals. I guess before I start, it might be useful to know who I am. Siaw has introduced me, but I guess I'm an academic general practitioner with a strong interest in clinical informatics and the ethical, legal, and social issues associated with health practice and e-health. And I have an interest in medical publishing. These are some contact details if you want to contact us. We got a presence on Facebook and Twitter. And this is the general practice unit where I work. And my LinkedIn details are there. So how can we raise our profile internationally? I guess the key is collaboration. We are more than the strength, we are more than the sum of our parts. And so collaboration is very important, I think. And this term will recur constantly during my talk. So what is a profile? I guess profile includes what we appear to be, our style, and what our substance is, namely what our knowledge and competencies are. And I'm talking about organizations and countries and what we do as programs. I guess you can see the parallel with personal profiles, but I'm talking about, I guess, profile of what we do in health informatics in Australasia. So the substance will include things like implementations and services that we provide as health informaticians, some of the quality improvement and safety work that we do, and some of the education and training that we do. And obviously, when you talk about substance, there comes right, we talk about the quality of the substance. And that's where, I guess, research and evaluation comes in. So, why do we want to share our profile? Why do we want to raise our profile? I guess, why do we want to share our style, our appearance, what we appear to the public, and what our substance? So it's why, and who do we want to share it with? This is some work done by Siaw et al. In health policy research. The first reason why we want to share and raise our profile is to advance knowledge and informed decision making. So, and we want to share it with our patients and their families that we care for. We want to share it with our colleagues and in the clinical domain as well as in the healthcare management domain. We want to share it with academics, educators, and researchers. And we want to share it with policymakers at our local, state, and national levels, and I guess with our colleagues internationally. So that's one reason why we want to share and raise our profile, because we want to share what we do. And there's a lot of things that's being done in Asia, in Australasia, in health informatics. The other reason why we want to share is to share knowledge to build up capacity. And these are the people we want to share with: training bodies, higher education, further education, technical education, other institutions of undergraduate and graduate learning. We also want to share with professional bodies to meet this capacity building aim, and obviously policymakers as well. And ultimately, we want to show that our profile, which is what we do and what we appear to do, actually achieve health and socio-economic benefits. So we have to talk to just about everybody. So that's kind of why we want to have a profile and why and who do we want to share it with. And again, it's at an organizational level, as well as at the different local, state, and national levels. And I guess it also applies personally, but let's focus on organizations. So this is the AHIN profile. I've downloaded this from the website. Okay, try to describe what AHIN is, who they are, who we are, why join us, activities. So it is kind of showing the public who we are. The style here is paper-based, but obviously I don't need to talk to you about the AHIN website because that's where the electronic persona of AHIN is. It reflects the style and the substance. Four strategic areas that AHIN is interested in: enhancing leadership, governance, monitoring and evaluation, build capacity, networking, sharing resources, standards, and interoperability. So these are some of the things that the substance of AHIN that we want to share and raise the profile about. And it requires the discipline, the health informatics work that we do, and people like us who are working in the health informatics field to be seen as an academic discipline and as a profession. So what is kind of an academic discipline? What do we need to be sure that we are an academic discipline? The definition of an academic discipline suggests that some of the attributes we need is that we need to have a particular object of research, and this object of research does not have to be, because we are a multidisciplinary profession or group, it may be shared with another discipline. So there are a number of, the research is, I guess, in our case, multidisciplinary. The other aspect of that's a characteristic of an academic discipline is that there is a body of accumulated specialist knowledge. And this refers to the research, the object of a research, and this is very specific to this discipline, all right, to the health informatics discipline. And it's not generally shared with any other discipline. So it's specific and specialist to us. And obviously, we need organizing theories and concepts to explain the specialist knowledge. There's a specific technical language, specific research methods, and there's usually some institutional manifestation in the form of subjects taught at universities or colleges. There are academic departments and professional associations associated with it, connected. So these are perhaps 6 kind of key kind of attributes that we look for when we kind of are trying to decide if something is an academic discipline. And I think health informatics has got all this. And health informatics being done in Asia, the ones that I have experience and through the literature reviews and on the online searches, suggest that there's a lot of there are academic disciplines of health informatics in Asia. The other substance question we need to ask is, are we a profession? Obviously, a profession needs a systematic body of knowledge and theory, and this relates to the research or the academic discipline. It needs to have professional authority over this knowledge and theory. Okay, so that's kind of the practice and the theory of health informatics. there needs to be a sanction of the community. So the community actually recognize this as a profession, health informatics as a profession. And like any profession, it needs to have a code of ethics. It needs to have control of aspects of its internal functioning as well, training, standards, and regulations. And all this must contribute to persuade the community that the profession can and should have control, and that it is in the interest of the communities or the public of interest that the professional body has such control on this quality, the training, and the standards. The regulatory code of ethics is usually self-regulation, but sometimes there's government regulation as well. And it is it's controlled, and the standards maintained by standards of entry into the profession. So we talk about some certification and accreditation as well. But ultimately, there must be a professional culture. And that is the establishment and maintaining of a professional community that set and monitor the standards, maintain the skill sets, and drive the growth of the profession. So this is all quite congruent with the strategic aims that's been professed by AHIN, where you look at capacity building and building up a career structure within the profession. So I guess these are some of the things we need to think about in terms of a profile, in terms of the substance of what we do. And obviously, the other bit is, do we have evidence that the substance is good? So in terms of cost-effective implementations of health information systems, the overall aim is that these systems must have good data and must be fit for purposes such as safety and quality improvement, patient engagement, education of patient and providers and practitioners, and research to address the grand challenges of health informatics. Obviously, the education and support and training programs must be robust and are cost-effective in providing the graduates and the professionals that we want. And the professional body should be able to support members in their career pathways. So these are aims which forms the outcome indicators for the evidence that this discipline and profession is actually achieving what it wants to achieve and is actually doing public good. Okay, so this is our substance. That we need to have substance, but we also need to have high quality substance that has evidence that is actually cost effective and is actually promoting the career and of the profession. So, a professional body like for instance, the professional body in its career pathways has to talk about some key activities. So a lot of professional bodies usually deal with and have activities in education and training, making sure that the membership actually are appropriate and have the right knowledge and competencies. It is an advocate for the profession to stakeholders, government, institutions of training, and so on, and to the community. And it is an engagement with the community to advocate for the profession. And obviously, that advocacy is to confirm and reaffirm the professional recognition of the health informatics professionals who make up this profession. So these are some of the areas where we need evidence of the substance. For instance, with our education, there are one way to assess the quality of the substance is to get our courses and subjects accredited. IMIA stands for the International Medical Informatics Association. And they actually have started in the last few years an accreditation process of health informatics programs. And the accreditation process involves an international expert panel that comprises an educator, an informatician, and a researcher, at least, in that panel of accreditors. And the accreditation is a fairly rigorous and detailed process. I guess before, one of the questions that will rise, and I think we should discuss it as a group, is EMEA the best organization to accredit HR courses run by Asian or Australasian training institutions? I was part of the accreditation panel that accredited course in Asia, in the Indonesian one. And as far as I know, there is two accredited programs, EMEA accredited programs in Asia, the Taipei Medical University program and the Gajah Mada University program. And it raises the questions that this is a scenario that we need to discuss. This organization, to all intents and purposes, meet all the expectations of the EMEA. But when you look at the publication profile, and I'll show that some figures later on in the presentation, is actually quite low. Now, there are some publications from Taiwan, but there's not as much from the Indonesian institution. So there is that kind of issue that we need to talk about if we talk about and when we talk about how to raise the profile internationally of what we do in health informatics in Asia. In terms of research, and the first category that I mentioned previously, the previous slide, health information systems, that's what the HIS stands for, is the data and the system fit for purpose? Can it give us enough information to identify the actors in the health service? And when I say actors, I mean persons and organizations and units and departments and so on. So, it needs to be able to have that flexibility. Is the HIS fit to support managerial activities and governance? Similarly, clinical activities and governance. So we're talking about the information as well as the applications that form the HIS, form the information system. Is it fit to support our care of populations and communities, to support policy and strategy, to support research and development? So I think these are some things we need to kind of, as we talk about the work we do, the substance of what we do, some of the questions we need to ask as part of our profile. And obviously, governance is very important, and the activities of the AHIN has focused a lot on governance and how good is the HIS, how well is the health information system governed, and how well is the care supports that the health information system supports governed. When I talk about governance, I talk about data governance, clinical governance, and corporate governance in the health sector. When we talk about data governance, we talk about data stewardship. When we talk about data quality management and those activities that try to make sure that the data and the information system is fit for purpose. And we also talk about custodianship, where we talk about the security and the privacy of the data. All right, so where's the data stored and how is it stored, and and how is it accessed and what do we use it for? Obviously, in that data governance, we also talk about standards and interoperability. And here the keyword is interoperability, especially if you talk about collaboration, where we talk, and interoperability at the systems level as well as at the data level. So we talk about technical and semantic interoperability. In terms of clinical governance, obviously quality and safety is important, very important, and the data governance should allow the clinical governance to work effectively and cost effectively. So quality, the data and the system should give us information to actually to start to assess and measure and monitor the cost effectiveness of the care that we provide. All right, so that's the important governance of how we integrate information and data governance with clinical governance. And obviously safety of the patients and of the providers. At the corporate level, at the business level, at the health organizational level, obviously including the manager, staff, and so on, and the executive staff, there are corporate requirements, and obviously there are a lot of work being done about accountable learning organizations, medical homes, and so on, and there must be kind of sufficient strategies, good strategy, sufficient resources, and good metrics to monitor the quality and the safety of the care and of the workings of the management of the organization. And all this, I guess, contributes to the corporate culture in the health sector. So that's the role I see, the role of health information systems and information in supporting and making sure that governance, whether it's corporate, clinical, or data, which should all be integrated in some way or another to promote safety and quality. Obviously, nowadays, we also have to think about how expensive it is and whether it's making money or not. But data quality management, the point I want to make here is that the data stewardship, the quality management, and the information governance and custodianship must be integrated with clinical and corporate governance in terms of the governance structure and the management structure. It needs to be integrated across the functional units of the organization, and it also needs to be integrated with other organizations in a network, in a region, or in the state. All right, so that needs to be that kind of integration of these aspects, the data, the function, and the management. And I believe many of the aspects of this governance are covered in COVID, the AHIN initiative. So I'm probably not saying anything new to you guys. The other aspect of it is capacity building. And again, I come back to the word that I say I'll be using a lot, which is collaborative. Capacity building strategies that we need to work together to share resources and to share methods. And as a region, whether it's Asia, Asia Pacific, Australasia, whatever you like to call it, we are stronger than the sum of our parts as a group. So in terms of capacity building, we know that informatics is universal with common principles, of course. It depends slightly on language but essentially it is the machine. And it's much easier to collaborate on some of the technical things to build the capacity so that we can actually start to work on how we can collaborate on sharing the context, which is the cultural and the social kind of aspects of how we actually implement our health information and our health strategies. So we can share common benchmarks to accredit our education and training, and that was why I raised the issue of the EMEA accreditation could be a unifying principle, or even unifying tool. All right. So if we actually can have common accreditation rules and regulation, rules and principles, it will serve a lot to build up strength as a collaboration. Similarly, collaborative professional accreditation. As far as I know, there are only two kind of professional colleges of the types that have fairly strict entry criteria, and they are the American College of Medical Informatics and the Australasian College of Informatics, of Health Informatics, where, like for instance, the American College of Medical Informatics goes through a rigorous process where fellows are elected based on their contribution to the discipline over a number of years. Yeah, so it's got the distinguished contribution through a fairly rigorous process of profile, the style, well, more the substance and the quality of the substance. I know the Australasian one quite well because I'm a foundation member of that, and we have a set of rules where to join the Australasian College of Health Informatics, an applicant must have made a distinguished contribution to the field of health informatics, or if you want to be elected as a fellow, or we use the term called a measured contribution to become a member. Have a minimum of 8 years for fellows or 5 years for members, practical experience in health informatics, excluding the time spent as an undergraduate student. For fellows, at least 5, sorry, at least 5 years must have been in a position in which the actions of the nominee have resulted in outcomes which can be seen to support the distinguished contribution to the field in Australasia. And the other bit, very important as a professional criteria, is an ethical user of health information. Demonstrate professional integrity and have their academic documentation verified and accepted. So, so that's kind of, we can actually collaborate. I mean, we can actually have a collaboration across Asia on some of the rules, and perhaps an Asian College of Health Informatics to have that professional accreditation done. The substance for when we start to work on raising our profile. So that's education and training and professional training and accreditation. And then with collaborative research and development, obviously there are a lot of things to be done, and it's more flexible. We actually can start to work together to make sure that our implementations are actually interoperable, not just within the country or within the region, but actually across the world. And I think the work that's been done by AHIN to analyze the e-health networks is a great start to actually work out how we can actually start to collaborate with whom. So that's for capacity building. And obviously, as part of capacity building, you got this R, we got the website, we got a number of resources for learning objects, for research instruments, for standards, and I'm not quite sure how advanced we are in terms of sharing data sets that we can share, but I guess that's some of the things we can do to collaborate and share information for the common benefit of our healthcare profession and our patients. But the other bit I want to come and I want to end on this is sharing our information through scholarly publications, sharing our profile through scholarly publications. and this is some area where, I mean, I was involved with APAMI and the Wonka Asia Pacific Informatics Working Group from the beginning, many years ago. We've been talking about this, and I think we're still talking about this. We made some progress, but I think we need to move further. So what can we do? How can we raise our profile internationally further through scholarly journals? Well, this is what the current status seems to be. I asked the International Journal of Medical Informatics editorial support people to give me some data on how Asia compared with the rest of the world in terms of publications in the last 10 years. And I guess this is how we rate. The blue is us, is Asia, and the red is the rest of the world. Asia includes South Asia and Asia Pacific and Australia. So it's not for looking at the kind of number of institutions and the number of populations we have, or number of institutions especially. I guess we can do better, but I guess that's relative. But that's what my perception is. We can do better. And can look at it from another way. This is I do a lot of research in data quality, and we did a review recently and looking at the data quality papers and some of the formal modeling and ontology works done in the area. And we divided the paper up by continents just to get a feel for, kind of the kind of things I'm talking about today. Obviously, Europe's got a big lion's share, 42%. But Asia is about 13%. Oceania, which includes Australia, is 18%. And North America has got 20%. So it's kind of to be expected, but, well, I guess it's my own feeling. All right, we can do better. And in my own experience, and experience with being on the editorial committees and editorial of editors of the journals, publications need to fulfill certain criteria. All right, the research needs to be relevant and valid and useful, and it also needs to be robust. But it's not just that. Right? There could be evidence of good data collection, which is good project management. And obviously, you need good research governance. Most papers ask for, ethics approval and so on. Good data, obviously, and we spend a lot of time looking at good data, and we bring in statisticians and so on. Obviously, we need good documentation, and this is where the informatics come in, and it's really used, and some of the skills, and that's a really good strength of some of the informatics publications. Obviously, the analysis is very important, and it needs to be realistic. It needs to be realistic to the methods used and to the context within which it's used. And the interpretation of the data, of the results, needs to be realistic, again, not over-interpreting, but it also needs to be contextual, needs to be realist, and explain the results in the context of what the setting of the experiment is. Obviously, you need to write well. And that is, I guess, something that we recognize, and I guess and it's improved a lot over the years, but I guess we still see difficult to review papers, mainly because the writing is not good. So that's some of the areas, but those are some of the criteria that we use to judge whether the journal will publish the paper or not. And we need to kind of see whether we tick the boxes for this criteria. So how do we actually encourage people to meet this criteria, or help our researchers and our educators and our clinicians and our managers to actually meet this criteria? There are two obvious strategies, right? Two obvious ones, I guess. We can increase our publications in these journals, or we can start an Asian or Australasian journal. I know we talked about it in the PAMI, but as far as I know, it hasn't eventuated yet. It will start with the second one, the journal. But I know the Australasian College of Health Informatics has got an electronic health informatics journal, but it has been struggling to keep it going. And there are talks now of actually combining with a number of other journals to see how we actually can become more effective and sustainable, which is the more important question. But so that has got its own issues. It's got its pros and it's got its cons, but there is a lot of hard work. But I guess the other strategy is to increase the publications in existing journals. And to make the second point first, all right, it's good to write individual, either country papers or individual project papers, but collaborative projects are more likely to get published. Because more, shall we say, external or generalizability and more attractive, and usually have better data. But I guess the other boxes to tick in terms of increasing the chances of getting published is the writing and the interpretations and analysis. So we wonder, and we have done some work in the family medicine or the Wonka group area to look at improving the writing of what we do. And that's something that perhaps the health informatics world in Asia can think about. Perhaps under the auspices of AIN, we can have a working group on writing and publications and start to focus some of the strategies that is part of the AIN terms mission, and perhaps use that as a method to raise the profile. So that's some of the, I guess, suggestions I'll throw into the mix before we start to discuss how we might increase our profile internationally. So I will stop here. It might be as to start the discussion. So to summarize, I have presented some ideas on the style and the substance approach to increasing our profile. And substance is knowledge and competencies, and some based on the things that we do. And obviously, we need to establish the quality of our substance in terms of benchmarks and outcomes, benchmarks for our programs as well as our projects in research and evaluation and training, and outcomes for patients and health professionals. And the quality of the health informatics workforce and the institutions that train them. And just in a couple of suggestions of how we might raise our profile through traditional avenues such as scholarly journals. So I will stop here and invite questions or comments.
Thank you for the comprehensive lecture, Professor Siaw. Everyone, we're now open for questions. You can enter them in the Q&A panel. If you can't locate the Q&A panel, you can enter them through the chat box. Thank you. Hello, Professor Siaw.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is there a significant difference between how European countries or American states present their profiles than how we do it in Asia?
I think the methods of presenting the profile, if I read your question right, is very similar, right? We use paper, we use conferences, we use internet, we use social media, so if we have a report or a paper or something that kind of highlight that we do, or what we do and what we have achieved, that's the usual channels that we use. And so the actual channels of that, of raising the profile is not different, because we got as much technology across the world as everybody else. The question I'm raising here is that, yes, we can do all that, but part of the reason why we're not raising our profile, apart from, I guess there's some political reasons, but is the substance, how we present the substance. Like for instance, I kind of have a bit of knowledge about some of the projects that go on in some of the Southeast Asian countries and South Asia as well as the part of Taiwan. They're doing a lot of good work. All right, a lot of good work. It's just how we actually present it, how we actually make sure it ticks a lot of the boxes, and obviously the writing. So it is not how it's being presented, but it is actually how we actually present the substance. It's not the mechanism, but it is how we present the substance of what we do. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Professor Siaw. I have another question. Yes, there is no one way or wrong or right way of presenting our own profiles because we have our different profiles, right?
Yeah.
But what is it that we're lacking compared to those in the European Union and America?
That's a good question. I think I guess part of it is the language problem. But part of what I'm trying to do as part of my role in the journal is actually to encourage more publications, but with, shall we say, realistic interpretations of the data. I think a lot of us actually have, over the years in Asia, have acquired the skills to do pretty good research and evaluation. Although, we still get a number of papers where the methodology is really, really chunky. But those that actually have good methodology, the interpretation needs to be realistic. All right, so you need to know what the limitations of the methodology is, the limitations that the context imposes on the findings of your results. So it is the interpretation of your work, of the substance of our work, that is very important. And that requires, and I think it's because of the discursive approach to writing or presenting results, where there's a lot of input and discussion before we actually submit the paper, that actually makes the difference. Because they've been through it and they actually start to know, I've got to interpret the data this way and that way rather than this way because of this. And that can't be done by a single person or a few people within the project. It needs to be collaborative. They actually start to present to related groups and so on. So it is that collaborative approach to writing. But by the same token, they also have courses where they actually help people write well, right? Writing for journals, writing for internet publications, writing for conference presentations. So there's different styles. So there is that kind of resources available, which I think we kind of are lacking a little bit in the Asian context. So these are some of the reasons that I can think of right now, of why we're not doing as well as our European or North American colleagues.
All right, Professor Siaw, thank you for answering my question. For our other attendees, any more questions? I have another question, Professor Siaw, while waiting for the others. With regard to networking, how can we scale up that one so we can promote our profiles as well in the other regions?
Networking. And what can you elaborate on networking? Because it can be people networking, it can be internet networking, it can be social media networking. But I guess it's all of the above. But if you can be specific about what type of networking we're talking about, maybe I can answer that.
Like building relationships with other regions, Professor Siaw, because if we're stuck with connecting to Asia, I think how can we promote our own profiles to the other side of the world? and learn from them as well.
Yeah. Well, I think, I haven't been to many AHIN meetings, but some of the meetings I've been for PAMI and so on, there's good networking. And from what I saw when I was in Manila for the AHIN meeting, there is a lot of networking in the Asian countries. And that's good. That's good people relationships. And I guess to some extent, if we want to raise the profile, we need to, I guess, present, number one, the networking within the Asian, among the Asian countries, or Australasian countries. But we also need to start to think about how we can see relevant topics within those kind of networking to help us raise our profile. Is there something that we're doing that's different and is reportable, and people from other parts of the world, whether it's European or North American, will be interested in? It's kind of having that kind of thinking instilled into what we do. Take, for instance, like the Japanese way of doing business. All right. Now that was well publicized, and it went, across to the Western countries, North America, especially North America, and that working style of corporate management actually has now become, kind of the hybrid. That's supposed to be the optimum way of managing corporations. So I think there's so the networking that we do is important, and it helps us raise our profile amongst Asian countries. But we also need to think about how we can actually share the way we network with our non-Asian counterparts, but also what we are networking about. It is kind of, and people will be more interested in the substance of what we network about, as opposed to the style or the process of networking. Some might be in the process of the networking strategies or styles of networking, but I think the substance is one that comes through most. So if you're talking about, like for instance, health information exchange, right? That's a common problem, a common issue, common language that people talk about across everybody. Everyone in the world is talking about it. So everyone in the world is talking about interoperability. So let's give those two topics an Asian flavor. Some of the things that's being done in Manila, in Philippines, in Thailand, and so on, and Indonesia, and so on. Can be, if we can say, like for instance, we network, we share common ideas, and then we report on it. It'd be much stronger than, say, Indonesia or Philippines presenting its own work. So I think that's the kind of approach I think that might help make a difference between a report getting or a paper getting published or not. Because you get that multiple inputs. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, we are networking a lot within Asia, but we need to use that networking and systematically see why we're doing it well and what are we doing it well with, and then share it with the rest of the world. And they will be interested. And I will be interested. Does it help?
Yes, thank you for your insights, Professor Siaw. This will be very useful since we're also preparing for the 4th AHIN General Meeting to be held in October to promote interoperability. Any more questions to our attendees, from our attendees? If none, you can ask your questions by sending them to our AHIN Secretariat email, and then we'll send them to Professor Siaw and post them on HingeX. Thank you for being our speaker today, Professor Siaw. Thank you for sharing your time and expertise. Also for our attendees for attending this webinar. May we invite everyone to join our next webinar on September 30, 9 p.m. Manila time. We'll be posting them on our website as well. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Please answer our survey to be sent on your email. Thank you, Professor Siaw.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, guys.